Why am I in the wrong one? I'm going to go here. So we're going to go to Honking for Freedom here and press. I know this is all very, very riveting, isn't it? So, okay. So I just had a meme come up on my screen. Wheel of Fortune. Fill out the letters, and it has the letters F and K and Justin Trudeau and 2 spaces in between. I wonder what letters they were going for. So we're going to start here, and doesn't a little boy want to? Good morning, Beth. It's good to see you. And good morning to everybody, and welcome to the best morning of your life, at least maybe of this day and of this week. And I'm glad that you're all here joining, doing things a little bit different. This is the first time that I'm streaming also to the Honking for Freedom Instagram account. So if you're on the Honking for Freedom Instagram, hello everybody. I've been doing this for the last little bit on my personal accounts, and as we're kind of growing this platform for everybody. And so the person who runs the Honking for Freedom Instagram suggested to me that why don't we start doing a live feed there as well. So good morning to you. This is Freedom Coffee, and this is the live stream that I hope we're all going to start the mornings in a positive vibe, despite all the negativity that we're dealing with, that at least we can kind of go through some of these things and put a positive filter and understand that the world's not collapsing around us. Despite all of these problems, we'll be able to work through it, especially if we're there and support each other and we're there together. So that's a lot of what this is about. And so I'm glad all of you are here. And I'm sure some of you in the Honking for Freedom might not have seen me on Instagram, on my personal accounts, and whatever. Here I am, and we also have a Honking for Freedom locals channel. That's what's broadcasting there. So the domain is honkingforfreedom.locals.com. Why is that important? I've written a book, and the book will be released in the fall, and we will be having a book launch for this book about Freedom Convoy and everything that went on behind the scenes. And we'll give a lot of detail and answer a lot of questions that people have been scratching their heads for several months. How was it broken up? Why was it broken up so early? One of the themes that I talk about on this channel, which is quite complex and esoteric, is how was the Freedom Convoy, was it sabotaged? And if it was sabotaged, who sabotaged it, and why, and how, and was that from the inside? So a bunch of people have been following along, starting to put a little bit of the pieces together. So we'll be discussing more of that on this feed, and I'll try to utilize this feed more. But first, I want to wish you all a good morning, and I want to wish you all the best day of your life, at least of this week and at least of today. I think when we start with that positive frame, it does make the days go by a little bit better. It kind of sets the tone for the day. And irrespective of the negative nonsense that we deal with, whether it be in our daily lives or work or government, whatever, it sets the stage for dealing with things, not from a state of anxiety, but from a state of positivity. So that's what we're trying to do here. So I mentioned honkingforfreedoms.locals.com. The reason that's important is for the book, the live event, if you are in the Toronto area. I've already got requests to do multiple book launch events, which we're going to try to figure it out. But at least the first one's going to be in Toronto. And in order to get tickets, it may be the only one. Like, I don't know yet. But right now, it's the only one. We'll see what happens. In order to get tickets, we're going to triage because there's going to be a lot of demand. I'm pretty sure of that. Not about me. I'm just a regular dude. But all the other people that are going to be involved in the event. So, in order to get tickets to the book launch, the first tier of the triage will be the locals people. So there's a few hundred people there, 300, 400, 500 people or something like that are subscribed to the locals platform. honkingforfreedom.locals.com. I'm streaming right now, and they probably couldn't hear me for a second. So honkingforfreedom.locals.com is first tier of the triage to get tickets to the book launch. The second tier will be people who subscribe to the Substack, so BJdichter.substack.com. If you subscribe there, you're going to be the next tier to get tickets. Now, the locals has a few hundred people. The Substack has about, and there's only going to be 200 spaces. Actually, it would be like 180 some odd spaces because there's people involved in putting the event together. Just capacity for fire regulations because of safety, right? Just sending some waves to everybody there. Thank you for joining. So anyways, in order to get a ticket, you'll have to either subscribe to Honking for Freedom or BJdichter.substack.com. And then if we haven't sold out after those 100,000 people, which is possible because people are all over the place, then it'll be available to the public. And I see the comments coming in already on the main feed. Oh, and we are, for those of you who are watching on Instagram, we're live streaming to Instagram, locals, YouTube, Facebook, a couple of others. The reason is to hedge against censorship, which is something that I was dealing with during the Freedom Convoy, which is why some people, they complained, why was there no central place for a voice and all that sort of stuff? Why couldn't I get all the direct information? Everything was scattered. Unfortunately, that was kind of intentional because I was trying to circumvent all the censorship bots on the various platforms. It seemed to work despite the fact that it caused a little bit of confusion. But if they didn't censor us, then we wouldn't have to deal with that, right? And there is a chapter actually specifically about the media strategy in the book that Punchy McGregor from CTV and various people at CBC were very, very upset about, especially when they were banned from our press conferences. And it was absolutely fabulous. And something that I had mentioned yesterday in the stream that Pierre Poilievre could have learned. Sorry, I hear multiple pronunciations for it. Something he should have done, in my opinion, when David Aiken, the global news smear merchant, was heckling him. He just should have. He was behaving like a child, so he should have thrown him out and called security and say, "Please remove him." And then when he leaves, when he's escorted, then you say, "This is how you deal with fake news and smear merchants. Anyone else, because I'm now going to start to speak. And if I get interrupted, you're going to be thrown out as well," right? I think that's where he should have gone. And, it's easy. Hindsight's 2020. When you're in this situation, it's obviously always more stressful. But it is what it is. And hopefully he has learned and will be a little bit more forceful in the future. Good morning, Sonia, Ryan, Megan. Robin's got a good morning. She's so funny. Hitchhiker, what's up, brother? Hitchhiker, my truck is still in the shop. Oh my God, it's going to cost so much money. It's infuriating. I will say, after having a truck with disc brakes versus drum brakes, I don't think I can go back. Honestly, it's like driving a car. Going down those, I go down and this is a lesson for everybody who's not into trucking, by the way. So when I go to Connecticut on I-90, you wouldn't notice it so much when you're in a car, but there are these big yellow signs that says for trucks, test service brakes. Service brakes just means your brakes, your brake pedal, okay? The reason is because there's a steep decline for, I think it's maybe 3 or 4 miles. And the problem is if you're not using, compression braking like lower gear or a Jake brake or whatever, all things that don't exist on a car, by the way. So if you're confused, don't worry, but you'll understand this. A truck can't sit there and ride its brakes down a 3-mile decline with a total weight of 80,000 pounds. It just can't do it. And what's really infuriating that happens as when you're a trucker is you're going down these steep declines, and people in their cars will cut in front of the truck, because we're usually in the right lane, and then peg the limit or slow down. That is a problem when you're in a truck. You're going to you try to go the speed limit. I set mine to, a couple miles below the speed limit, and at the bottom of the hill, the bottom of the decline, I may be 2 or 3 miles above the speed limit, because I have automatic an auto cruise with that utilizes the Jake brake. Anyways, truckers will know what this is, but cars won't. The point is, that's what causes accidents. You may just think, oh, I'm just moving in front of a vehicle and slowing down. It's not a car. It's a freight train, and the only direction it can go is straight. And there is limited capacity for braking. Like, again, you can't ride the brakes. It's a little bit easier for me with disc brakes. It's not quite as bad. But most trucks use old school style drum brakes. And they'll just have brake fade, and then they'll have no brakes. And you're now sitting in front of them, pegging the limit, 100 meters in front of them. They're trying to back off from you, but they can't. What do you think's going to happen? So I'm trying to figure out a good way to articulate that lesson, because I've mentioned it once before on the stream, but really, really important. Do you have a ballpark figure for ticket prices? Kiss Junkie asks. Yes, they will be reasonable. It just depends on who's going to be there, but we'll make sure it's very affordable. I want everybody to have the ability to come there. It won't be much more than the cost of a book, but we'll know soon. I got a team that's actually working on it, and that team's now putting together kind of an action plan and trying to coordinate the speakers who will be there and make sure everything works well. I'm trying to get somebody who's very, very prominent, and a friend who's trying to work his schedule to be there, but his schedule is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So it kind of depends on that and what happens, and we'll go for there. Kiss Junkie, people in cars tend not to respect trucks. Yeah, it's like they just don't know, and that's why we got to let you know that when you get in front of a truck, you may think, oh, it's just a few car lengths. That's a freight train. Stay away from trucks. Just stay away from them at all costs, and that's good life advice. Okay, the other thing is there is a free promo code for locals, and it works. It works, because Teresa messaged me on Twitter last night just wanting to confirm the promo code, which is the word free, all capital letters, FREE, and the number 6, and she entered it, and she got in. So I don't know what's the issue, but it seems to be that it's working. Now, I don't know what's going on with my Instagram. I had to use my American phone for my Instagram, and now it's all wonky. Well, we'll see what happens. Leave it there. I can't do tech support while we're here. Sorry, because okay, you guys are having a conversation. And I love that. I love when people kind of come in to the locals community, find each other, start talking to each other and stuff. Like that's amazing. I love that. Keep it up. Okay. This weekend on Saturday night, what are you doing? I know what you should be doing. You should be logging on the internet and joining a live stream with myself and many of us to watch the Punchy McGregor, he's the CTV smear merchant, his fake documentary on the Freedom Convoy. I've watched about 10 minutes of it. It's painful to watch, but it's also funny. It's funny because it's so blatantly wrong, inaccurate, and full of lies. So what I thought I would do is we're going to have a watch party, which is you get what you prefer. You grab a drink, grab a beer, or whatever it is. Let's get together, join the comments, and let's watch the documentary together. I'm going to give kind of my takes because, well, I was kind of there, and Punchy was very upset with me when he was stalking my room, and we had the hotel manager throw him out on his ass. So I think it would be a great way to kind of to engage in this stuff, but in a fun way. Let's just make fun of how stupid they are. It'll be great. Leesland, I love that name. Punchy is so accurate for him, isn't it? Where will the launch be? It's going to be in Toronto, and it will be, and it's not, for those of you who are in Western Canada, I have family from Alberta growing up my whole life, so I don't think Toronto is the center of the universe, but I happen to live here. And, I got to squeeze this within my trucking schedule and all my other stuff. So that's why it's going to be in Toronto. And the other people who I want to, who I've invited to attend, they're also in Toronto as well. So I'm kind of limited to what I can do based on where everybody is, their availability. I did have somebody ask me to do a book launch out west in Alberta or Saskatchewan, even northern BC. If there's enough interest, that might be a possibility. Let's see what happens with the pre-sale of the book. If it's successful, then maybe that's something we can explore. But right now, Toronto, Ryan. Anyways. Okay. So I was doing some notes, and and by the way, Saturday night, 8 o'clock, you can see the link. It is pinned to my Twitter. Okay, so I was putting together some ideas and some notes and what I wanted to talk about based on what I was watching last night. Hey, Hannah. But something just came up earlier, about an hour ago. And it's a report from Blacklock's reporting. Blacklock's is an independent media source. They are very factual. They're great. Actually, Mark Petroni got me onto them, and he often covers their stories on his radio show on Saga 960, which is saga960.ca. I go on there once every couple of weeks when he wants me on there. And so it's kind of old school investigative journalism, which is what we've been missing, which is part of the reason we have nothing but fake news here. And the Blacklock's report that just came out was related to the Freedom Convoy. What do you know? And I'm just going to read you I haven't had time to look into the whole article, but this is just the brief of the article from Blacklock's. Toronto's the heart of Lib territory. Perfect place to drop it. Bro, you have no idea. Like where I live, this was Jack Layton's territory, and the ghost of Jack Layton still lives here. So it's all like, gender studies professors and cultural Marxists and whatever. It's some crazy town here, which is exactly why I want to do it here. That's exactly, I would love, if anybody comes who's got a big rig, you can drive big rigs on the main street here, Danforth. Bring your trucks. There's still parking on the limited parking on Danforth, but there is parking. And if somebody wants to bring somebody wants to bobtail, then I'll make sure to save a couple of spots for you guys. Anyways, so yeah, back to what was it? So Blacklock's has done a report related to the Freedom Convoy. And this is what it says. This is the summary of their article. Okay, I'm reading directly from what they put on their website. A police blacklist of bank account holders' names as Freedom Convoy sympathizers was emailed to lobbyists, records disclosed. The RCMP distributed names, birth dates, phone numbers, and other personal information by unencrypted email contradicting public claims by cabinet haphazard would be an understatement. So the RCMP was led by Brenda Lackey, who was, I believe she was she was either an activist or a liberal bureaucrat within the government, who was then just, appointed to RCMP. I don't know if she had a background in policing. She might have. So forgive me, Brenda, if I got that incorrect. But the RCMP was leaking information to a lobby firm, a private company. So if you wanted evidence that the government is essentially run by lobbyists, this is how they're sharing information through these private lobby companies. Does that worry you that a private lobby company is getting people's personal banking information and on disclosure of all their information based on their political views? Does that sound right to you? Do you think there's going to be any? Retribution for that? Like, I don't know. Just something to look at. So if you go to Blacklock's reporting, or just search Blacklock's online, you'll find their website, and they'll talk about it. And I'll try to find out some more information about it for the next stream. But that's the degree of clown world we've gone into, where the government, and it's so funny. It's committed by the people on the political left, which, okay, you're on the political left, that's fine. What happened to, evil corporations and stuff? Like, what do you think a lobby firm is, right? They don't have a product. It's bribery. Lobby is a synonym for bribery. It's political bribery. That's all. And the people engaged in political bribery are now mining your data. At least, like I've said many times before, at least with Facebook, we could opt out, right? Can't opt out of our government, unless you move. Which there's a scary number of people that have actually been moving out of, not just out of Ontario, but out of Canada. So many Canadians that moved to Florida when I was down there to speak at Bitcoin Miami. Should be fun and entertaining on locals. I'm just reading a couple of comments from Kiss Junkie and Beth. I promise you, it's not going to be one of these uptight, boring book launches where the author just reads a chapter from the book. That's just not my style. It's going to be fun, engaging. We may be having some podcasting going on, some talks. It's going to be in a bar that one of my friends owns. And it's a really nice kind of ambiance with a patio that's enclosed when it gets cold. And the idea is to go there and to have fun and to celebrate what we've been through this year and what many of us have been through with Freedom Convoy, and which is ongoing, by the way. It's I'll talk more about that another time, because the drama never ends. The drama really never ends with this stuff, and you got to give us credit for living rent-free in Prime Minister Blackface's head. This is super scary. I wanted to donate to GoFundMe, canceled it. And Give Send Go, I still wanted to donate. Yeah, and this was kind of, I know there's a lot of people in this space who don't like, or probably because they don't understand Bitcoin, and I get it. It's something new. It's something completely different. And during the convoy as well, like, there was nothing but hostility when I said that there's a group of people that are raising Bitcoin for the convoy, for the truckers. Some people have that instant reaction. They don't understand something, so they turn negative. But it's the only money that actually got into the hands of the truckers. And those guys did an amazing job. They went, they fundraised, they educated truckers, and they got Bitcoin to those truckers directly. It was quite amazing. So, okay. I was in a room last night, and it was called Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre is just as bad as Trudeau. So I went in. Hey, Rox. I went in, and I'm trying to take this approach that I'm not going to be hostile to anybody based on their political choices, who they vote for. That's their right, and we got to get away from this headspace of attacking people who are voting for different parties for different reasons, whether we perceive they're confused or not. I mean, okay, what can I do, right? So anyways, it was an interesting room because there were people who were supportive of the CPC and the PPC that were watching, that were engaged in this Twitter space. And I give them credit. There was, everybody was respectful. They had open discourse and debate. That they tried to understand everybody. It was amazing. It was very political, though. And what I want to talk about is not so much the fact that what were their ideas and policies, who they're going to vote for, whatever. That's not the point. The point is, I think we're getting to the point where people are they're falling into this trap, I think, out of maybe desperation, because many of us have been radicalized by media on all sides to think that the world is collapsing. The world is collapsing if you take the Cerveza, if you don't take the Cerveza sickness medicine. The world is collapsing if you do take the Cerveza sickness medicine. And I think that rhetoric on both sides needs to be toned down a little bit. And I'm very much, I mean, this was the whole essence of the Freedom Convoy. It was about freedom of choice, that you get to decide what you want to do. That's what we were fighting for. That was not about medicine efficacy. It was just about the freedom to have control over your life, to make your own decisions, that your body does not belong to the government. It belongs to you and the body of your children as well. And I think the first trap we're running to is, my kind of rules about politics, which are rule number one: politicians are not heroes. I'm sorry, they're not. Most of them are have very questionable ethics, and we know that. We understand how politics works, the type of people that get into politics. They're not going to save you. They're not going to save anybody. They are part of a bureaucracy. Their job is to lie to you. Their job is to make you think that they are going to be the hero that's going to save you. And it's just disingenuous. They're not. You're going to save you because you have control over your life. And save you from what? I mean, that's the other thing. Like, we are all, despite all the nonsense and craziness that's going on, or perceived craziness as we see in our media, we got to be honest with ourselves. We live in the most privileged society, in the safest society, in the safest time of human history. That's why we're all upset about, the government giving us these restrictions, because we do live in such a privileged time. So I think if we reset and we start from the frame of, okay, we are in the best circumstances right now. All of this noise of blackface and his restrictions, it's obnoxious and it's annoying, and we'll work through that. But we need to first appreciate how good we have it, how good life could be. I mean, I've lived all over the world, and there's places where I lived where, the area of the city is controlled by paramilitaries or narcotraficos. So if you say the wrong thing, they'll just come and shoot you. We don't have that problem here. So we're really privileged in the fact that we also can have the open debate. Now, the censorship is obnoxious as well, but that's why it hits us hardest. So other societies, if you're encountering censorship, that's just kind of accepted. We don't accept it here because we know we have rights and that we should be free. So I think if we just start with that frame that, no, we're in control, we're the ones who are free, and we're all privileged. It's nothing to do with race. It's the fact that the most privileged people in the world are people who live in the West, of all races, ethnicities, creeds, whatever. We're all privileged. And then we can appreciate that and then start to work through some of the nonsense that we deal with. But a politician is not a magic button. There's no politician who's going to come in, press the button, and change everything. We saw that with Trump, for example. So there are many people who supported Trump and still support Trump, but they're upset with a couple of the policies because he also has, certain constraints in his job. The one that always sticks out with me was the bump stock regulation for firearms in the United States, that a bump stock, which basically allows you to fire multiple rounds more rapidly. I think if I'm not mistaken, the legislation makes a bump stock declare a gun an automatic weapon, and you're then in violation of the law. Like it's completely crazy. And it's Trump who signed that in, and that was part of a deal that he had to make with the other side. So everybody has certain constraints. So there's not one person who's going to come in here and save things, but we also are living in the safest society in the safest time in our history. So if we always remember that, we'll be good. The second rule that I have about politics, because I'll get to you in a second, because Junkie, and I'll address that, is rule number 2, that politics is not sport. And I think we need to stop treating politics as sport and stop focusing so much of our time on politics. It occurred to me last night, I was just going through my to-do list, getting everything done and prepared for today, to go to sleep a little bit early. So that's when I happened to go on Twitter Spaces. I got an alert that the space was there, and it's one that they invite me to frequently. So I went in and I listened. And again, they're all great people. But I can't help thinking, like, are they there every night? Like, what could we be doing instead? Like, remember in the past, I don't know if things have changed because of COVID, but people would be working on their yard, they'd be working on their car, their motorcycle, they would be building something and doing other stuff. Now, maybe they're doing that stuff while listening to political Twitter. I don't know. But I think maybe there's many of us that are getting a little too addicted to the dopamine release of an argument, and essentially political gossip is what it is. It's the equivalent of a chat room on the internet in the late 1990s, right? That was the only way you could communicate. You go into these public chat rooms, or you would have ICQ or iMessage or whatever, or Yahoo Messenger. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the audio version of those chat rooms. So I'm sure it's going to wane over time. But I think so much of this time can be devoted to other stuff: family, friends, getting together with people, whatever. Which is what the communists don't want. But I think there might just be a little too much, and a good strategy for that is, because you're going to be people are going to have to fight against the dopamine release of getting into these groups. So how do you do that? And the way you do it is by time blocking your time that you engage in political, debates, discussions, whatever. So, for example, in the case of Twitter, if you're going to go into, the Pierre Poilievre discussion group, you're going to give yourself, a half hour a week or an hour a week at a specific time or date, right? Humans get addicted to things that are random, and if it becomes structured by date, then it doesn't have the same addictive tendencies. I don't know if that's the way to do it. I think it's probably a strategy, but I think we all should. I was sitting there thinking, like, wow, we're all getting sucked into these political debates and thinking about politics all the time. And this can't be good for our mental health collectively. You see online that the world is collapsing because or not because of cerveza sickness medicine or whatever. But, I go out to my balcony, I open up the door, I look outside, I see a beautiful skyline, and life is okay. Everything's fine. I go down the street, I go get coffee at my local coffee shop, I go shopping like the rest of us do, and life hasn't changed. The conflict is limited to these online gossip groups on Twitter, on Facebook, or whatever. So I think that's maybe something we should think about and maybe dial back some of the time. I mean, these are all new inventions, like the whole Clubhouse, Twitter Space, call-in sort of type thing where it becomes a podcast or a broadcast that you participate in. it's a new phenomenon. So there's no question that people are going to get all over it because it's something new. But like anything else, it might be a positive that you're able to reach out to these new people and find these new friends and talk about this stuff. But like anything else, anything in excess is bad. And I think Twitter in excess is bad. And if you're going into a Twitter space every night, then I think maybe it might be a good idea to dial it back just a little bit. That's just my own perspective. But politics of sports, you know what? Just go watch actual sports. You know, the blue versus purple versus red. Like, I don't know about you guys. Aren't you getting worn out by it? Like, it's getting a little... And it's, I mean, they're all people that, yeah, they're doing a job. I get it, but that's all it is. It's not. They're not freedom fighters for us. As I say that, somebody comes in, DeSantis in the north, and you know what? That guy has got it sorted out. That's somebody that Pierre could take some advice from in terms of combating the media, because DeSantis is so effective in that realm, right? Very true. BJ positivity can be uplifting. Yeah, and the other thing is, you know, we're trying to deal with all these issues in our life that the government is getting too involved in our lives. That's really what the problem is, right? We need to get the government out of our lives more. You can't fight that battle, for lack of a better term, if you're permanently in a state of anxiety and anger. Like, we need to be in that positive state so we can, you know, sit back and do a little bit of analysis and think strategically and work with others, and that's how we can move forward. Beth is telling me, read the whole comment you missed. The problem is, Beth, if you saw how it was set up here, I have another phone blocking half of my iPad because I need to get, I don't know, another stand or something here to set it up. Hold on, let me see if I can do it this way. All right, hold on. Beth, just for you, I'm going to, let me see. Positivity uplifting. I've been waiting for it to piss me off at some point. He seems to be happy all the time, but so far so good. Well, look, I get angry too. We all do. But I learned a long time ago that whenever I would react and get angry, I can't always do it, but I do my best to sit back and utilize observing ego and relax and say, okay, why am I reacting this way? Perhaps I need to just sit back and contemplate for a couple of minutes and then figure out if I'm even going to respond or not. That happens a lot to me in Twitter sometimes. Not so much anymore, but you see something that really gets under your skin. That's complete nonsense. Usually fake news coming from Punchy McGregor at CTV. And you see this BS, and you want to type a response, and I realize unless it's really funny and just makes him look like an idiot, which is not all that difficult, then it's just anger. It's just, yelling into a room and it's not worth it. And that requires that, for me, it requires that sit back, stop for a second, let's think, and you do that little quick analysis and then go back into the positive state. There's something that I use periodically. It's a tool called the 5-Minute Journal. It comes from Canada, by the way. It's both an app and a book. And it's this tool for beginning your day. The idea is to get you out of anxiety. And I'm not a terribly anxious person to begin with. But for people who suffer anxiety, apparently it's a godsend. And you start your day with a couple of questions. And the first question is, describe 3 things in your life that you are grateful for. 3 things that you are truly grateful for that bring happiness to your life. And the reason for that is it causes you to have to, if you're really doing it, you're not just kind of, filling something out, but just sit back and actually think about it. It causes you to get out of the state of anxiety if you're in that state and to start to think about things that give you pleasure, whether it's your family, your friends, your next of kin, your loved ones, your children, your parents, it doesn't matter, your work, Could be the coffee that you're drinking today that's the most positive coffee of your life. But the idea is just to get your mind to shift, to think about things that bring you positivity. And when you do that, that's why it's called the 5-minute journal. If I was just going to write it out, it would take me 30 seconds. But if you sit back and you think about it for a few minutes, it kind of forces you to shift that emotional state into positivity. And for me, I mean, I don't have to use it all that much. I do once in a while when it's really stressful times. I used it actually during the Freedom Convoy a couple times. But for a lot of people who suffer that sort of anxiety, it's so amazing how much you can change your perspective just by getting into a positive headspace and realizing how good things are, all the good things in your life that you really appreciate, and then this noise on the side, it becomes far less relevant and doesn't necessarily affect you negatively. Thank you, everybody who's joined. This is the first time I'm doing the Honking for Freedom live stream. I see there's people coming in and out. I promise this is going to get better and more professional over time. This is we're still at the testing phase. And but thank you for being here, and I really appreciate it. Okay, a couple of comments. So from Beth, I'll have to move this over here. Beth had limited. I've had to limit what and how much I watch on YouTube, Facebook, just to keep myself from being panicked or anxious. Yes, but the thing is, it's not about Facebook or YouTube. It's about what you actually have. That you're clicking like and what you're actually viewing. So, like I have a bunch of stuff on. Like I don't have television, like cable television. The only sort of TV that I would watch is YouTube, and I tend to do that more at night. And what do I watch? I watch stuff on the James Webb telescope. I watch stuff ancient history. I'm big into deep dives of ancient history. And somebody is watching here is laughing at me for that because she knows I do a lot of that. I got a lot of car stuff. So I'm a car nut and motorcycle stuff. And so, if I just want to clear my head. So usually for me, before I go to bed, for at least an hour or so, I'm watching or listening to podcasts as well that are completely unrelated to politics in any way, shape, or form. So if your playlist has things that are not related to politics and the cultural divide, the perceived divide that at least is on the internet, I think it's going to help you get away from that, anxiety and stress. At least that's what it does for me, right? And I was looking for, where was your comment here? I'll have to look, I'll search it in a couple of minutes. Kiss Junkie, I think it was from you. You're feeling that you were targeted and that the state of, right now, based on, I guess, your culture, ethnics, whatever it is you're feeling like you're being targeted. I understand what you're saying. This is political nonsense from cultural Marxists. It will wane its course. Give it some time. Yesterday I was in one of these groups I was in. It was, what's it called? Gays against broomers, but we know what broomers is a euphemism for. And some of you know, I'm very libertarian on social views, a lot more libertarian than a lot of you, which is fine. I respect your opinion, and I think it's important that we engage with one another. But anyways, so it was, I only went in for a couple minutes, but I joined this group, and what was it? It was people in the gay community fed up with them being used as a political pawn for some of these extremist activists. This story of the teacher in Oakville everybody has seen it at some point. And it was so nice to step in for a few minutes and listen to people who were, a lot of them were Republican. I think they're kind of the Dave Rubin type Republicans. But they were talking about how are they going to address this issue because they're fed up with it. They're fed up with the fact that they're being painted as the P word, and they're all completely against it. And many of them were victims of it when they were younger. So on that particular issue, I thought, like, that's great. You know what? Let them fight that battle. Let them lead the charge of that battle. And the rest of us can just support them. And they'll deal with it directly, because it's, within their community that this nonsense is growing. And a community, you know what I mean? I hate when we misuse that word all the time. Anyways. So things are good. The world is good. And headshots, you just said, me too. Physics audiobooks are good too. Yeah, when you're discussing things, whether it's physics, cosmology, astronomy, cars, trucks, motorcycles. I mean, these are all guy stuff. But, there's, like, remember in the past, I remember when I was a kid, magazines like, what were they called? Chatelaine and stuff like that were very popular because, men and women, we are, I like how Desmond Morris put it, the very famous zoologist, that we're equal but different. We have different areas of interest. So we all have different areas of interest that are non-political that we can engage with and not let it affect us all negatively. And I think that's a problem. Okay, I got to move this again. So, because I keep getting questions here on locals from you two lovely ladies, and you are amazing. Do we do this in the morning when we are half asleep, or after we drink coffee? My brain doesn't work before coffee. 5-minute journal, I mean. Yeah, good question. You just do it whenever. Either it's just going to be earlier in the day as you're starting your day. Either it's after you get your coffee, before you decide what's good for you. You can even do it in the middle of the day. There are times where I was just so busy. This happens often when I'm on the road, and I get I've done my reset. So 5 a.m, they want to unload me. So I go to the dock because I want to get back to Toronto as quickly as possible because I got work to do. And so those times, I'll wait till I get to I'll go for coffee at a Dunkin' Donuts or something. And then I'll take, 5-10 minutes before I get on the long haul back to Toronto, and I'll do the 5-minute journal there. It doesn't matter when or where, it's just as long as you do it. And it's best when, you feel any sort of sense of anxiety. That's when it becomes really difficult. That's when the 5-minute journal becomes the 20-minute journal, because it takes a while. Just to think and rethink over and over again all these positive thoughts and things that you care about to get you out of the state of anxiety. But those are the best days. The days where it's the most difficult, that's when it's going to give you the most value. I should say that. Old school sitcoms work for me, says Kiss Jonky. Let me guess, All in the Family? And I know it sounds silly, but a little bit fierce videos, stories by the dodo, I think it is, because of my love of animals. So there you go. How many, channels are there in Rumble and YouTube? I mean, as Rumble's starting to go a little bit more not mainstream, but they're getting non-political content on there finally. How many videos are there on, documentaries on wildlife, on animals, on dogs, and all that sort of stuff? Like, there's so much. So why waste time on all this political stuff all the time when you have that option? Yes, it's tougher to find positives the more anxious you are. Agreed. Old sitcoms. Yes, okay. All in the Family, The Jeffersons. I loved Married with Children, which is probably why I'm not exactly politically correct. I have Al Bundy to thank for that. Okay, a couple of comments in here. And so let's go back. Oakville. I think the Oakville guy is playing the left. I don't know who that is. The two type of people who need us politicians are the same types that don't want the job because the job of exactly. I think it was it Mario Cuomo's, the idiot brother Cuomo's father. He said, the person who most wants to be president of the United States is the person who should is the least person you want in that position, right? You want the person who understands the severity and the responsibility and the negativity of that level of responsibility and who's resistant to the job. And I happen to agree with him. This, irregardless of his political perspective, he's right on that. Okay. Oh my God, me too, Ryan. I'm MSN Messenger years old. Yeah, I'm ICQ years old. I used to love ICQ when I was younger. On Twitter, I have kept clicking. This is from Delta Mail. On Twitter, I've kept clicking show more replies. Is that because I don't have a Twitter account? It's so annoying that every scroll down requires clicking show more replies. Yeah, I don't know. I've also noticed, because I have a bunch of different Twitter accounts I have to manage for podcasts versus myself and all that sort of stuff. It's funny how the interface would change from one to the other. So like my main Twitter account, I'm pretty sure is shadow banned to an extent. I'm not sure to what degree. So the interface is completely different than the interface on like one of the podcast platforms. Like it's really funny. It's the same app, but it's completely different. What are you gonna do? It is what it is. And people are like, "Oh, don't you get upset if it's shadow banned?" I'm like, I don't care. I have a few people I talk to. I put stuff out there. The people I talk to will know it's there, and if they don't, they don't. They do, they do. I don't really spend time worrying about who's listening to me or not listening to me. Just kind of do my thing, and that's it. So. Toronto is the heart a little bit okay. Rocks, I saw you were there. All right, I think we're caught up. And if I missed any of your comments, I apologize. Remember, I'm new to this. This is the 32nd live stream, and it's going to take me up to at least 100 till I kind of know what I'm doing. But thank you all for being here during this whole test. Anyways, so that is my white pill. That firstly, for all the kind of the social nonsense that we're seeing, what's going on in schools and with certain people. There are people that are really upset and trying to fight that battle on the inside, and we always got to remember that. Same in policing. We see the politicization of police forces. And I happen to know there's a lot of, because I know some of them, there's a lot of people in police forces that are, gently, because they have a lot of constraints, but pushing back against the woke nonsense in policing. And it's really kind of divided many police detachments. So, yeah, there you go. The other thing is, so we've been doing this. There's some topics that we're going to be revisiting. One of them is, I've mentioned numerous times, who sabotaged the Freedom Convoy. And we've been going back and forth with, was it an individual? Was it a group? Was it multiple groups? And I've gotten some very interesting feedback and very interesting comments from some people about who they theorize, and some people who just got a couple of them dead right. And we'll be exploring more of it. But this is more for people on the Honking for Freedom live stream, because the rest of you have heard me say this. I'm my apprehension is because you're not going to like when you find out who sabotaged the Freedom Convoy. And I'm really worried about people slipping into cognitive dissonance and saying, "Oh, that's not possible. That's not possible." I'm like, well, unfortunately, they are the facts. And from those of us who were on the inside, there was a lot of weird stuff going on that just didn't make sense. Some decisions some people were making, or kind of pushing onto us in the Freedom Convoy as they kind of, strong-armed their way into it. And it just made no sense. Like, it just was completely crazy. One particular strategy on how to protect the donations that I put forward and said, well, why don't you just set up this structure? That way we can, deal with it in the future. And I was told, oh, that wouldn't change anything. What do you mean it wouldn't change anything? It's a completely different jurisdiction. These people have donated their money for their cause. Protect it. Oh, no, that's not going to change anything. Oh, bunch of losers who never win any lawsuits. But anyways, that's... we'll get into that into more detail. First, I want to get this book out. And the whole idea of the book is this is going to be a positive story. There's a little sprinkles of some of the conflict that was there, but not very much. I wanted to focus on all the good things that transpired and tell the whole story. So we interviewed some of the other people. It's mainly my perspective. But, there were times like I was not in the truck driving across the country. Tamara and Chris and everybody else, and Bridget and everybody else, they were in the trucks. So what we did is I set them up for interviews to tell that story of the driving, so there's different chapters that have perspectives from different people, but it's going to be, it's amazing. The book is so good. And I've been doing it with somebody who is a published author, was an investigative journalist for 30 years. So those skills were so beyond useful in putting together the timeline and him kind of aggregating what was happening on different dates and him figuring out how these things all fit together so we could put together a manuscript. So it's not like, it's not BJ just sitting there rambling off nonsense like he's doing on the live stream. It's a real book, and it's great. Lisa, you are very smart, Lisa. That is definitely one big key part of it. Because, the other thing that was so frustrating was there's so many people that climbed on to this Freedom Convoy who were obsessed with the money. And as Tamara and myself both said to various people, it's not our money, it's not your money, it's money for the truckers. It's no one else's money, it's for them, right? It's for them and for all the infrastructure and all the, whatever problems we have to, when she put the cost of the journey is a umbrella term for everything that would transpire as a result of it. But that's what that money was for. And, legal issues is unfortunately cost of the journey, because if we had any sort of legal matters going on. But, it was it's quite frustrating. Get the book, I promise. It'll explain a lot. It'll I think what happens, a lot of people, they'll step into these online echo chambers online, and they'll start hearing rumors about anybody with the convoy, and they won't hear the other side. They won't hear the other perspective, which is why I started going into Twitter Spaces towards the end of the convoy once we could all breathe a little bit, because it was nonstop chaos. And I'm confident this book will help shed some light on a lot of things that transpired. But one thing's for sure, the Freedom Convoy lives rent-free in Blackface's head, and he can't shake it, right? So anyways, in terms of other topics we're going to talk about on here, on this platform, obviously we're going to be revisiting the Freedom Convoy as things continue to develop and as information continues to develop. Somebody tried to add, by the way, I don't know who it was, to add themselves to the live stream. I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to ignore it for now, and I'll figure it out after. But anyways, so I apologize. I don't know exactly what to do with that. I think we can also discuss something that we've been doing for the first 30 some odd episodes, are these different strategies to de-stress and not get sucked into the anxiety echo chamber. Scott Adams did an amazing, he calls it a quick lesson, I think is what it is, on reducing anxiety from a psychological perspective and different tricks that you can do. It's on Locals. It's on free. Anybody can watch it. It's absolutely amazing. Apparently I only have a minute and 52 seconds remaining on Honking for Freedom. I don't know why that is. So I want to discuss that sort of stuff. Other kind of cultural issues we got to deal with that are not always political sometimes, and I think that might be something good that we can talk about. Also, trucking. If you got any questions about trucking, and I know people like Hitchhiker and Gord and a whole bunch of people who are in trucking right now are all there willing to lend their hand and would love to kind of explain to people what's going on. So, if you have any questions about trucking and about the economy, because I can see from what's going on in the transport industry, the economy is not doing too well right now, and that's a leading indicator. So we'll see it in 6 months, which is something we should all be concerned with. So just to close off, For tickets to the live event, go to honkingforfreedom.locals.com, sign up. That will guarantee that you'll be in the first tier of triage that will receive invites for tickets. The second is BJdichters.substack.com. I'm behind with releasing a couple of articles on Substack for a reason, because they got to be strategically released, but they will be released soon. And you find me on Twitter and Getter, BJdichter.com, on Minds as well, BJdichter. And my personal Instagram is BJD.online. I know it's all a little bit kind of all over the place. I will clean it all up as time goes on. But we're already an hour into this, or over an hour. I got to run. I'm going to be late for a meeting because I just got a notice. I love you all. Have a positive day and be good to everybody you run into today. Thanks.